This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. As a warm embrace of summer envelops the Northern Hemisphere, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals throughout this season. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. And on today's episode, we have an incredible guest. While currently based out of SoCal, Alison takes us on an amazing journey around her home country of Spain. To see some of the incredible photographs from her previous and most recent adventures, make sure to follow her on Instagram @RisingSummits. During our amazing chat with Alison, we learn about her journey into hiking and backpacking, which includes exploring the Alps, the Pyrenees, and the Dolomites. One of which included a wildlife encounter that went from frightful to magical in a split of a second. Lastly, we learn about how she's creatively merging her professional background and love for hiking into inspirational content. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Alison. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really fun guest with me today. Her name is Alison. She has spent a lot of her time over in Europe hiking, and she just recently moved to the States. And I'm really excited to speak to her about the transition from hiking in Europe to hiking here in the West Coast. Thank you, Alison, for joining us. You know, we always like to start off by hearing how our guests got started hiking and how long they've been doing it for.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to spend this time together and chat. When I think about my story when I started hiking, I always go back to when I was a little girl. I've always been very sensitive, very in tune, very intrigued around the world around me. I've always cherished nature a lot. I used to cry if I step on an ant or any insect. I was very aware early on about taking care of the environment and obsessed with taking care of water and throwing the trash where it belongs and everything. My mom used to have this book that had pictures from the wonders all over the world. And I remember it had this huge picture of the Grand Canyon. And I used to just sit there and look at it. And I thought those things were so far away from me. Like I would never have the chance to see them. So as I grew up, I kept watching movies and documentaries. My family does travel a lot, but they're not very adventurous. So we've never really hiked a lot. And I never believed I could hike mountains or that was a possibility for me. When I finished my bachelor degree in 2018, I moved to a mountain town in the south of Spain that's called Granada. And I was reflecting a lot about my life. During my bachelor's, I started traveling a lot on my own and doing a lot of projects. And traveling through Europe, I could get a sense of the nature that was there, but I felt like I didn't have the skills or didn't know how to get into hiking or into nature. So once I moved to this town, I joined a mountain club from the university. I went on my first hike with them, which was pretty hard because they took us on a pretty hard peak. I remember I was super anxious. I was scared of heights back then. I was scared of descent. I was scared of falling down. It was a mess. But I remember getting to the peak and all the hairs in my body, in my arms, just stood up. And it was such an emotional moment. I got teary-eyed just looking at the views from the top, and that feeling of calmness, of being on top, of seeing the mountain range, seeing the views. It was a moment of being there with myself and saying, I did it, like coming face to face with my insecurities and all those thoughts of, no, you can't do it. And in that moment, I realized I could do it. So it opened a whole window to a life I didn't know I could have. So after that, I made a lot of friends. We hanged a lot in nature, in the mountains. And I started to realize that a lot of things in my life weren't aligning. So back then I had the relationship I was in for like 6 years and realized we didn't have the same values. He didn't want to live the same lifestyle. So it reached a point where I made a radical decision. I ended the only relationship I knew in my life, and I started diving deep into what I wanted and what I believed in. Not too long after that, I met my now husband. We started exploring. We bought a camper van, hiked all over the place. So ever since I made that decision, I just been living my best life ever. And I keep growing as a person. I keep exploring. I keep progressing as a hiker. Sometimes people think that everything I'm doing now is because of Nick, my husband. But what they don't know is that all of it comes from way before, and from the decisions I made and the risks I took. And he's definitely not forcing me to do anything we're doing. So.
What a wonderful introduction into hiking, from being able to join a mountaineer club and within that first hike, making the summit and seeing the mountains to being hooked. I think that's really wonderful. And I think a lot of people have that experience on their first hikes where they kind of get the goosebumps, the chicken skin when they see something beautiful and they're like, okay, I'm hooked. Let me do more. And you've mentioned it already, Alison, but you spent the majority of your life in Spain. You were born in California, but you were raised in the south of Spain. I'm always interested in hearing what the hiking scenes are around the Guess neighborhood. So what is the hiking scene like in Spain?
I think the hiking scene in Spain is very, very underrated. Like growing up, I think I also didn't think I had the chance to hike because I thought I had to go really far away to experience something like that. I think a lot of people there have no idea of the beautiful hikes and mountains that are around us over there. So in the last couple of years, I've discovered a lot of amazing places. The nature is so rich and there's so much biodiversity. So the north of Spain is super green. It rains a lot. It's very foresty. There's two very big national parks, which is the Pyrenees, that is between Spain and France, and there's Picos de Europa. And you can also do beautiful coastal hikes that have amazing cliffs, which is really nice. And then the south of Spain is the total opposite. It's very dry. There's pines, oaks, cork, but there's a lot of mountain ranges all over the south. And you can also hike through the desert. Pretty interesting. We also have the highest peak in the country, it's called the Mulhacén, and it's like 11,000 feet. It's a very popular skiing place to go. It has amazing slopes and trails and everything. It's super nice. In fact, a lot of people from Europe come to ski there as well. But in general, I would say that it's a very friendly place to hike in. Everybody's super warm and close. Trails are very well maintained. It's not very commercialized, but it's very regulated. So you need a lot of permits. Some of the hikes are closed during some periods of the year, maybe in summer because of risk of fire. They want to protect it. So they really take care of it a lot. So there are a lot of hiking communities and a lot of people that love it, but it's not very popular. So you might be on trail and you basically have it to yourself, which is very nice. There's a big variety.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people think of Italy when it comes to the Western movies of the 50s and 60s. But just recently, in the last couple of years, I found out that Spain was also a location for Western backdrops. So it's so interesting that you have that biodiversity of, the Pyrenees, the desert, and then the coast as well. And most people, including myself, when they hear about hiking in Europe, the one thing that kind of pops into people's minds instantly is the Alps, because they're just so beautiful, so gorgeous. And you actually got to hike in the Alps, but you did it in a very amazing way. And I'm interested in hearing about this, but you did the Tour de Mont Blanc, and let me know if I pronounced that right.
Yep.
Which not only crosses France, but also Italy and Switzerland. How was it hiking in the Alps and doing that trail system?
When I get this question, it is so hard to find words that makes justice to it. Because I just get flooded with the vision of the rivers, the glaciers, the forests. But the feeling I get is I still get this knot in my chest of being speechless, because it leaves you, it's such an impact when you see all of that. I remember when my husband told me for this first time to do TMB, I was so upset. I was like, how dare you? Who do you think I am? I am not an elite athlete. I can't do that. But I worked through the insecurity. We trained for it. And flying over there, I was very moody because I was very hesitant and scared of what's going to happen. Am I going to be able to do this? I was so frightened because it was my first time carrying a heavy pack. So I have done many hikes, like hiking several days, but it's always been like day hikes. So it's not the same that backpacking with a heavy pack. And I think my backpack was probably around 30 pounds. So I think there was a lot of things I could have not brought with me for sure. But they're very hard, long days. The elevation gain is crazy. There's days where you can gain 4,000 feet and then descend the same 4,000 feet. So it's very up and down all the time. The first days we were very slow because our packs were like very heavy. We were taking a lot of breaks. But after a couple of days, we were like, we need to kick it up. We need to go faster. We were just suffering too much. And that's when we started enjoying it, because we were getting to our spots faster and we had more time to rest. The most funny thing is that the first day you take a bus to the trailhead. We took the wrong bus in the wrong direction. So we started like over an hour later. And then something you need to know if you go to Tour de Mont Blanc is that there's a main trail that you do, but there's also alternative trails, which are harder. And on the first day, accidentally, we took one of the hardest trails.
Oh, boy.
So we were destroyed. We gained those 4,000 feet of elevation, descended 4,000 feet. We still weren't even close to our campsite. And we were there not being able to check in time for our campsite. And we were like, what do we do? Because it's not allowed to camp freely unless you're over a certain elevation. And we were kind of like panicking. And believe it or not, the first day we ended up sleeping in a 5-star hotel. So, which was an extra 5 miles from where we were, because it was the only thing around. So once I got there, there was a man waiting for us. He gave me a glass of water. I was like totally devastated. And I was just sitting on the floor of the shower with this super fancy shower that I've never been in a 5-star hotel in my life. And yet I'm doing Tour de Mont Blanc, and the first night I'm sleeping in a hotel. I was sitting at the floor of the shower with the shower falling from the ceiling, the water, and I was just questioning my existence, like, what's going on? So, all the intrusive thoughts start coming in, like, is my trip ruined? Am I gonna able to finish this trip? Because we were so far from where we had to continue the next day that we were like, if we had to walk all of this distance, we're never gonna make it. Luckily, 5-star hotels, they drive you places. So they took us to the start of our trail the next day. So we regained hope. So that was quite interesting there, but it's so majestic. Like, there's so many bridges. You see the snow-capped peaks. Everything is so big. You see mountains for miles and miles. You're literally in the middle of nowhere. We encountered so many wildlife: cows, goats, deers, mountain goat, donkeys, gophers, a lot of dogs. It was really meaningful. We stayed in a lot of refugios, which is like the huts in middle of the mountains. They have bunk beds. They give you food. It's really nice. It's really beautiful. We alternated between refugios and campsites. It wasn't as painful, like backpacking and sleeping on the floor every single day. And it's also a way to experience the cuisine of each country and the food they serve you in the refugios. But in general, for me at least, being my first big experience hiking a trail like that, it was a balance of love and hate. Because there's moments where you've been like walking for 10 hours and everything hurts. At the same time, you're loving it. So it's that balance there. But for me, it was a very personal challenge. I got to know myself in a very deep level. A lot of my insecurities came out, my intrusive thoughts, my defense mechanisms, because you just walk in and you just want to stop. Your body's like, please stop, it hurts. And you're like, you can't stop, you need to keep walking. So my body's like, can somebody please save me? And nobody can save you, only yourself. And only walking. So it was definitely a challenge and I learned a lot. Yeah, it was a great experience overall. I would just summarize it in 4 points, which are crying and walking, eating and sleeping. Because after you walked for so long, you're so tired, you just want to sleep, but you gotta eat. So I'm like sleeping and like eating at the same time. Tiger Balm was my best friend. And then I took these curcumin supplements because they're good for pain and they're anti-inflammatory. And forever who doesn't know, curcumin is yellow. It's a very bright yellow supplement. And it got crushed inside of my backpack. It was the laughing point of the whole trip because my backpack is blue, bright blue, and it was stained with yellow. All over. The yellow got everywhere inside my backpack, in my food, in my contact lenses, in
Oh
everything.
boy. Oh boy.
And then I was like texting my dad when I had signal. You think it's okay that I wear my contact lenses if they're yellow?
Oh my goodness. Wow. So, Allison, here in the United States, especially on some of the longer hikes, people develop trail names, and typically they're ones that other people give to them. Maybe it's because they eat a certain snack all the time or they do something. In Spain, do they do that? Do they give you a trail name on some of these longer hikes?
We don't, but I think mine would probably be curcumin pants or something like that.
Yeah, definitely curcumin something. Yeah. What an amazing adventure. And I think it's very much well deserved if you went 4,000 feet up, 4,000 feet down to stay in a nice hotel and just relax. And especially if they take you to the trailhead, that's a huge plus. Now, on this hike and backpacking trip, how many days and how many miles did you guys travel?
So it's 100 miles, 105 miles more or less. And it's really good because it's very flexible. So you can make it how many days you want, also dependent on your physical skills. So you can go either from 7 days So there's people that do it in 5. We did it in 10 days, but there's also people that do it in 12, 14 if you want to take it slower and just really, really take it in and enjoy it.
Talking about the refugios, are those something that you have to reserve prior to going, or is that something that's just open to the hikers there?
No, you really have to plan ahead of time because it is such a popular destination that they get booked out really, really fast.
Well, what an amazing, amazing introduction into backpacking. And, one caption that really caught my attention, and I think other hikers have experienced this as well. But when you see something so beautiful, especially for the first time, you catch yourself taking pictures that you think are from different vantage points. But then when you look back, it's almost the same picture. But I feel like the Alps is one of those locations where, the pictures make it look beautiful. But then once you're there, it takes it up like 1,000%. Is it hard keeping a steady pace when you have so much beautiful scenery around you?
Absolutely. And I'm the type of person that I grab my camera and without being in the Alps, I already stop everywhere to take pictures. But I experienced a very interesting frustration I haven't experienced before. That is, this is so beautiful and I have to keep walking. I just want to stay here and I just want to sit there for 5 hours to take it in. But I have to keep moving. I have to keep walking, which is not bad because you keep seeing amazing views. But it's just every single corner, you just want to sit there and take it in because it just leaves you breathless.
I recently went down to southern Utah for the first time, and I experienced the same thing. A 2-mile hike ended up turning into like a 2-3 hour trip just because I was stopping and taking pictures of everything. And right now, up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I think in California, it was a few weeks earlier, but the wildflowers are really starting to peak. And that's one of those moments where, a small little loop trail for wildflowers can take hours because you're just trying to get the right pictures. I see that Spain has some beautiful wildflowers in the mountain ranges. What are the wildflowers like in Spain and in Europe?
In the south of Spain, that's basically where I was raised, there's not a lot of wildflowers because it's very dry in general. We do have a lot of sunflower fields, which is some sort of flower. So the wildflowers are usually more in the north. You can find some fields of red poppies and orchids. But then in the Pyrenees and more the mountain area, there's definitely such a big variety of alpine flowers. And they have this beautiful, I don't know what's the name, but this beautiful purple flower. And it's amazing.
The biodiversity in Spain sounds so unique and so diverse. What is your favorite region to hike in your country?
So my favorite region is definitely the Pyrenees. It's that amazing mountain range between France and Spain. It has really rugged peaks. It has very deep valleys. It has a lot of glacial lakes. It's also very steep and very, very rocky. Like you can cross swimming pools of huge rocks. It's very rocky. The thing I would point out the most is the solitude and the peacefulness. It is incredible. Like after being in Tour de Mont Blanc or the Dolomites or the Pyrenees are still on the top of my list. It is such an amazing feeling to be hiking in such a place that is not popular at all. It is stunning and you can just walk for miles and you won't see a single person and you're by yourself in such a beautiful environment.
That's amazing. That's good to know. So if people are planning a trip to Europe and, of course the Alps will be on their list, but if you want to get away from the crowds, the Pyrenees are the place to be, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned the Dolomites and I was so excited to talk to you about these because the Alps are up there, but just the rugged beauty of the Dolomites probably put them on the top of my list for European hikes. How was it hiking in that beautiful mountain range?
So I had no expectations going into the Dolomites, but it knocked me out. I don't think there's a very better expression for it. I mean, interestingly enough, the Dolomites are part of the Alps, but they're unique. And they're different. The rocks have a very steep face and it goes like straight up to the sky. And they have like this like pinkish grayish rock that it's only in the Dolomites. It's a specific type of
Oh.
Dolomite rock. But besides that, which is very obvious, the culture there is just very rich. There's a lot of history there because there has been a lot of battles and conflicts from World War One. So you can definitely hike through a lot of tunnels and bunkers and just the results of all that history going on there.
How many days were you there in the Dolomites?
I was in the Dolomites for 2 weeks.
Wow. So this one's going to be a hard question, but what is one of the major highlights of those 2 weeks there in the Dolomites?
Good question. I think the major highlight was we stayed in a cabin in the middle of the mountains, and it was so secluded. You went out to the balcony and the mountains were literally in your face. So besides obviously the stunning views and the stunning hikes, I think that was the highlight because we came back from doing amazing hikes and we were resting in the cabin and you were still there enjoying it.
Wonderful. And is that something that also you probably have to reserve, months in advance in order to secure a cabin like that?
I wouldn't say so because the Dolomites aren't that crowded. So to be safe, obviously reserve ahead of time, but there weren't that many crowds.
For folks that are interested in visiting, whether it's the Dolomites, the Pyrenees, or the Alps, what are some tips or advice that you would give to hikers that want to visit them? Is there some better seasons over others? Maybe some things that they should consider, especially if they're coming from the United States?
So Dolomites versus Tour de Mont Blanc. When it comes to weather, the Dolomites have a weather more similar to Italy, so very hot summers and cold winters. And Tour de Mont Blanc or the Alps have more of an alpine weather. It is more recommended to hike there between late June and early September because there's a lot of snow, and in winter they take down a lot of the bridges that they only put up during the summer. So that's very important information to know. Besides that, the Dolomites are just very sharp, very dramatic, very rugged. And the Alps are more majestic, are more grandiose. So definitely when thinking about whether to go to one place or the other, also take into account that the Alps are a very, very popular place to go. I don't know, but when I think about it, the Dolomites have something special about it. I don't know if it's the Italian culture or the food, which is absolutely delicious, but the atmosphere is very different. And if you're somebody that really likes history as well, you should definitely go to the Alps.
Good to know. One thing that's becoming more popular, well, not necessarily popular, but that's coming more frequent, Alison, is a lot of the really popular national parks are having to switch to a timed reservation system where you have to reserve a time to go into the national parks. Is that something that's occurring over in Europe, especially in the Alps, where because there's so much popular spots that they're now having to incorporate like a timed entry system?
I have not heard about that in Europe. So luckily still that's not a thing.
Oh, good. So people don't really have to worry about reserving an entry time, just maybe some permits to be on the trails?
Not even that. For doing Tour de Mont Blanc, you don't need a permit at all. You just need to worry about where you're going to sleep and what you're going to eat.
Gotcha. That's good to know. You've traveled solo across Europe and hiked in some amazing places. Throughout all your travels, has there been a place that you visited that might be considered underrated, but that people that are visiting Europe should consider spending some time in, even if it's just for like day hikes?
I would definitely recommend the north of Spain. I'll insist on the Pyrenees. Please go there. The Alps really are beautiful, but I feel like the Pyrenees are right up there. And yeah, if you want that solitude and that peacefulness, that's definitely the place to go.
When is the best season to go visit the Pyrenees? Spring, summer, or fall?
I would say summer. In the winter, it's really snowy, but you can go ski if you want.
Oh, that's true. One thing that I really love about your Instagram feed is that you are posting some really positive, some really honest and inspirational content. I feel like hiking can be a really restorative activity for a lot of people. How have you developed this wonderful content to not just help elevate your hiking experience, but also other people's well-beings, including yourself?
My content really comes from my heart. So, being a woman who I didn't believe in myself, but I was full of passion and full of adventure, when I took the risk of doing what I thought was the unknown and learning something new, I discovered a side of myself that I didn't know. So I dedicate my life to psychology and to helping others. So I'm just trying to find a way to do that as well through nature and hiking, because I mean, the research on the benefits are endless when going outdoors and challenging yourself. You create a special relationship with yourself. And when you're outdoors, there's just no social standards. There's no social pressure. The trees, the mountains, the lake, they're not going to judge you. You get to disconnect from the stress of life. And I think that by doing such empowering things, you start to appreciate your body for what it's capable of and not for what it looks like or it should look like. So, through my own personal and I guess professional experience and my love for photography, I try to blend it together and try to create some wholesome content that hopefully speaks to other people's heart and inspires them.
You share inspirational content, but there's a couple posts that you provide not necessarily data points, but proven things when it comes to being out in the outdoors and enjoying nature, which is really great. You've mentioned it earlier on in the podcast, and it's something that strangely I've been noticing for me personally as I get older, the fear of heights. And, when it comes to hiking, especially in mountains, you have to kind of deal with that fear. How have you been able to overcome that fear, especially on big mountains like the Alps and the Pyrenees?
That's a good question. I think it's all in progression. Start really slow, obviously starting with people that know what they're doing and that they can show you. But you really have to practice the skills. So you know you're safe, breathe, ground yourself in the moment. I would say redirect your attention to your senses, like what you're doing, each step, what you're looking at, being in the moment. If it's still really bad for you, the fear of heights, try not to look. Try not to look over. Try to focus on your feet, on each step. That really works. But it's a little by little, and I think fear of heights, I'm not sure if it ever goes away because it's something that's there for survival and to protect ourselves. But you can get to the point where you might have the little knot in your stomach, like, oh my gosh, but try to stay grounded and don't let your breath get out of control. So try to control your breathing very well.
And I think you hit it on the head right there, Alison. Because one thing that I wasn't really aware of until I started doing yoga is how to control my breath. And I feel like in those situations, especially with the fear of heights, you hold your breath. And you don't realize that you're not breathing, and then that just exacerbates what you're feeling. So just having a nice, steady, controlled breath can definitely help you through those challenging situations. So we've been talking about Europe, and you've mentioned you're now in the States. You're in Southern California. Do you remember your first hike that you did after you got settled in?
Yes, we did a very small but cute hike that's called Annie's Canyon. It's like 1.5 miles, and you go through the canyon, some narrow passages. You see some sandstone walls. You have views of the ocean and the lagoon. So it's pretty cute. Nice introduction to the area.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was a cross-country road trip, but you got to see different parts of the country already, from like Louisiana to Sedona. What are some other memorable places outside of Southern California that you've had a chance to hike and visit?
So before moving to California, we stopped in Louisiana, in Texas, and Sedona and the Grand Canyon because Nick, my husband, he has family in Louisiana and Texas. So we did sort of a road trip on our way here. And I feel like the most memorable experience of that was the swamps. In Louisiana and in Texas, I've never been in a place like that before. So it was very nice to see. And then after hiking last summer in so many amazing places, I really had no expectations about the Grand Canyon because, everybody talks about the Grand Canyon and it's like, yeah, yeah. But then you get there and it's like, oh my gosh, it's this overwhelming feeling when you see that. And I was really shocked and amazed.
And for many people, it's like the crown jewel of American national parks. And I think you're right. People have heard so many great things, but until you see it, it's like the Alps where it just takes it up to 1,000 once you're there. I don't know if it's something that's as regular over in Europe, Alison, but here in the States, not all hikers, but some hikers have regular hiking routines, whether it's at a summit or maybe once they make it back out. Sometimes it's a favorite drink, snack, meal, or even just a moment of zen. Do you have a regular custom that you do when you've reached your summit or reached your destination?
We're usually all over the place, so we change a lot, but I feel like the number one thing that stays there is connection. We love using our time outdoors to connect, Nick and I, and we have the most amazing conversations, and it's just a perfect time there's no distractions, it's just you two in nature, and I feel you can go really deep. But besides that, we tend to hike a lot for sunrise, so our number one ritual is coming back home and taking like a 3-4 hour nap.
I like that. Get your hike and your sunrise done early and then come back and nap. Oh, that's great. Now, with hiking over in Europe and doing day hikes here in the United States, when it comes to your pack list, whether it's a day hike or backpacking, what would you consider to be your most valuable piece of gear?
I mean, obviously, my good boots are great. My poles are a necessity. But something that's made my life easier is my camera clip to clip that onto my backpack. So that was the best discovery I've ever done. And I don't think I can hike without that.
And I'm starting to see more and more hikers wearing it, Alison, but it's just like a little clip that goes on one of the shoulder straps, right? That you just click in?
Yep, you put it in one of the shoulder straps, and then it has like a little thing you clip into the camera, and you just slide it into the clip.
Because even with just your cell phone camera, you're having to take it in and out of your pocket, and especially if you have zippers, that adds a level to it. So to have something just quick and easy to now,
it's very comfortable.
Throughout all your hikes and travels, have you had any close calls? Whether it's maybe nearly getting lost. Maybe you had an unexpected wildlife encounter or Mother Nature just caught you by surprise. Have you had any of those experiences on your travels?
So the last time I was in the Pyrenees, we went to an area where we were going to do a really long hike. So there's these taxis you can take inside the park instead of hiking inside, which saves you like 5 miles. We took the taxi in, we did our hike. We took longer than expected, so we missed the taxi back. We were exhausted. We did such a long hike. We still had 5 more miles to go. We decided to, instead of hike back, we walked down the road where the taxi goes. And Nick was like, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to run to the car. You just keep walking. I'll meet you halfway. So it was almost pitch black. You're walking in that road in between the forest. You can see the trees all around. The trees are covering the top of the road. And I'm walking there, just focusing on my pain. I'm tired. I'm hurt. And then suddenly I'm trying not to focus on the surrounding areas because it's kind of scary. I was completely alone. It was almost dark. You start hearing noises from the trees. I start looking in the trees. I have a small Snow White moment where I think I'm seeing monsters between the trees. And I'm just there as a therapist convincing myself, no, I'm just crazy. I'm having intrusive thoughts. But I do start hearing noises and I'm like, nope, not gonna look into the trees. I'm just gonna keep walking. And suddenly I see this huge thing pop up in middle of the road and I freeze because I don't see very good from far away. My first instinct was, it's a bear, I'm gonna die.
Oh no.
But I start squinting my eyes and I'm like, okay, I start seeing the antlers. I'm like, okay, it's a deer. But when I realized it was a deer, it was such a magical moment. I really felt like Snow White in that moment because there was nobody there. There was complete silence. It was just the deer and me staring into each other's eyes. Nothing else. You just could hear the wind shaking the leaves in the trees. It was the most magical experience I've ever had. And then all I heard was like the sounds of the deer's feet getting off of the road and getting into the forest back again.
What an amazing experience to have those intrusive thoughts and thinking, oh my gosh, it's a bear. Seeing something so majestic and beautiful and having a moment with that animal with nobody else around is pretty amazing. Did that happen in the Pyrenees or where did that happen?
It was in the Pyrenees and I was totally wowed. After that, I was just walking in a cloud, no more pain.
You're getting settled in here into the States and we're halfway through the year. Do you have any upcoming hiking goals for the rest of 2023 and maybe beyond?
We have a lot of things we want to do, but our main goal right now is going back to the Grand Canyon and doing the rim to rim. When we were there, we saw it and we didn't have enough time to hike it. So we were like, we're definitely coming back. So that's our number one goal for the summer.
Right on. And during the research, are you thinking of doing south to north or north to south?
I haven't gotten that far into it, but I think probably south to north, I think.
And then any hiking goals beyond 2023 for you?
I don't know. My husband says he wants to go back to Tour de Mont Blanc.
Oh, have you had a chance to research some of the popular thru hikes here? Being in Southern California, you're probably at one of the big starting points for the PCT. Have you had a chance to learn about the Pacific Crest Trail and maybe see some hikers near your neighborhood?
I've been diving deep into it and it looks so incredible. We went to do a hike, a peak that's called Garnet Peak, and it was a beautiful hike. It has views from the desert, the Anza Borrego Desert. It was really the most beautiful hike I've done so far here in South of California. And it's part of the PCT. So we saw a lot of hikers starting the PCT or passing by, and I was so jealous.
But one that a previous guest had told me that I think might be right up your alley is the Catalina Trail on Catalina Island. Not as super long, but still, I think it might give you like southern Spain vibes, maybe.
I've researched it. I tried to do it recently, but it's really hard to get from one point to the other when you're done doing it because you usually rely on the boats that take you, and they're only available during the summer, so I couldn't figure out the technicalities of it.
Oh, I might have to get you in touch with Tammy. She's the one that did it. She kind of knows the ins and outs of the permit and how to get in and out of there.
I would love that.
Well, Alison, it has been awesome chatting with you and learning about your hiking adventures. The second half of the podcast is this or that questions. I'm going to give you 2 hiking related topics and you just choose the one that you prefer out of the 2. So the first one is, do you prefer ascending or descending?
When it comes to easy ones, obviously descending, but if they're both equally hard, I'd rather experiment the pain and the burn of ascending.
And do you prefer waterfalls or summits?
I'm a summit person.
Yeah, I don't blame you with the beauty of the Alps and the Pyrenees. When it comes to switchbacks, do you prefer switchbacks or straight up?
It's funny because my husband likes going straight up, so I'm more of a switchback person, but sometimes I end up doing straight up.
And I think I know the answer to this one, but do you prefer trek poles or freehand?
Trek poles, definitely.
And this is one of the newer questions, but do you prefer wearing trail runners or hiking boots?
I have better experience with hiking boots. Definitely after hiking through very rocky areas, I don't like feeling the edge of the rocks on my feet.
The next one is also new, but do you prefer loop trails or trails that are out and back?
I really like loop trails because it allows you to see a lot more of the area.
And when it comes to alpine lakes or lakes and rivers in general, do you prefer to jump in or stay dry?
I'll say I'm a dip my feet person.
Okay. And this one's always a hard one, but I think I know what you're going to answer. But sunsets or sunrises?
Yeah, definitely sunrises. There's something special about them.
Do you prefer spring flowers or fall colors?
I love fall colors.
And then the last one, when it comes to social media, do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike?
I believe in tagging the area. If it's a very popular trail, I don't mind tagging the hike, but I usually don't tag the hike. But I also don't have a problem if somebody asks me, hey, what hike was this? I will share. But I'm not a fan of just leaving it easy accessible to anybody that might not take as good care of nature.
I like that answer. Well, that was it for the this or that questions, Alison. For folks that haven't had a chance to follow you on social media, what's the best place online that they can follow your hiking adventures?
The best place for now is definitely at Rising Summits in Instagram. I am working on a blog, and I'm also working on a psychological hiking guide, which is going to be very interesting.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, once you get your blog and the guide, please send it my way, and then we'll add it to the episode notes for people to check out.
That sounds amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Alison. It has been a pleasure chatting with you and learning about your hiking experiences. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great experience.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Alison. We extend un sincero agradecimiento to Alison for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow her adventures on Instagram at Rising Summits. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the summer, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday, with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on any thrilling tales, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. A special shout out goes to our incredible audio editor, Alex, whose exceptional skills and dedication help bring each and every episode to life week after week. Thank you, Alex, for your invaluable contribution to the Hikes and Mics podcast. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsocks.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.